All right, so let's talk a little bit about paint. What I'm going to start out with in the first part here is some other brands. You have PPG, DuPont, Matrix, House of Color, Spies Hecker. There's a million companies, okay? And then there's the private label companies of those companies. So they're all really good paints. Stick with the urethanes. You're going to hear base coat, clear coat. You're going to hear single stage. You're going to hear tri-coat. All that means something. Don't overcomplicate it. Single stage means one paint, okay? An example of a single stage, at black, okay? If your bike is black, you do not need to buy the Victory paint. We don't even carry it, because go down to the parts or to the paint store, buy yourself a quart of black. It's the same color, okay? That's about the only color you can do that with. So get yourself some black urethane. Two things, okay? Single stage means you take your black, you add hardener, you paint it, you're done, okay? One step, okay? That's what single stage means. There's some benefits, some downsides to it. Black, again, is one of those colors. You can kind of do it either way. If you want to do base coat, clear coat, you can still get black in a base coat, but then you spray clear over top of it, okay? What it does, it gives you a little bit more depth, but it gives you a little bit of protection with that clear. So depending on what you want, you can do it either way. For the most part, and for 99% of the people out there, you won't know the difference when you look at it. You know, again, you may have a little bit of that depth, but looking at a black bike that's buff, nice and shining, you really won't know the difference. So the single stage is going to be a little cheaper because you don't have to do the clear. Less chance of screwing it up because you're only putting one step on. You're not coming back and doing it. You can still sand and buff it. Again, a little bit harder to sand and buff because if you go too much, you hit the primer and now you start over. With the clear, you got a little bit of a buffer to sand the clear down and buff that. Okay, so single stage. Okay, when you're doing clear in the other companies, this is one, Auto Body Master. It's a private label of, I think it's PPG. Urethane clear, again, urethane on everything, takes the activator, okay? This is catalyst again, so you need this catalyst with the clear. You cannot use the primer catalyst with the clear. You got to use it like this. Again, more cost. You can see the costs are starting to go up, okay? This stuff really doesn't come in a spray can. There is clear in a spray can. Don't use it, okay? Don't chintz out and use it. It's going to look like shit. Do it this way, okay? Now, this is the aftermarket brands, you know, any of them, PPG, they all have clears. The only thing you might see is something called high solids clear versus a regular clear. High solids just means it's a better quality. It has more like pigment material in it, okay? It will give you a deeper look if you put it on like a sunset red or a metallic blue or anything like that. You will notice the difference, okay? So a high solids clear is definitely a lot better quality clear. You will notice the difference. More money, again, depending what you want to do. If you're doing kind of a show bike type thing, I'm sure you're probably not going to be painting that yourself, but give it a try. It's not that hard, honestly. If you screw it up, you sand it up and do it over, okay? It gives you the pride to do it yourself, like we always tell you. But you would want to use a high solids clear on that because it does make a big difference, okay? So that's enough about that. So some of the paints, a base coat, clear coat in an aftermarket company, if you use the base coat, you need a reducer with that. Now, that's not lacquer thinner, that's not enamel reducer. It is base coat reducer. Now this is another company, Nason. Again, there's a million of them out there, okay? You need a base coat reducer to go with base coat paint. You can't use this in enamel, you don't use lacquer thinner, none of that. Use the right stuff, okay? One thing I won't get too involved in, okay, but I don't know if you can see here, it says mid-temp on the can. They sell reducer according to outside temperature. So you have a high temp, a low temp, a mid-temp. Some of them say fast dry, slow dry. What that is if it's super hot out, you want to use the right reducer. So it dries. You don't want stuff drying too fast. You don't want it drying too slow. You want it drying the right speed. Everybody pretty much uses a mid-temp because it's right in the middle, obviously. around 70 degrees, 80 degrees type thing. The high temps go more like 85, 90 and up, and the low temps are kind of 70, 65 and below. I always recommend don't paint under 70 or 75 degrees. If you go out in the garage and it's 50 degrees out, don't start painting, okay? It's not gonna dry right. You're gonna end up with problems. Just wait till it gets a little bit warmer. If you wanna run a heater in the garage, that's cool. Make sure it's not a flame with the overspray in the air that can explode, okay? That's, again, have the fan. But if you wanna do that, when you get the garage nice and toasty warm and it's 70 degrees in there and you paint, and then you turn the fan on to suck the fumes out, and now it goes down to 60 and 50, you do not want to do that. When they say 70, 75 degrees, that's consistent from the time you do it till the time it dries. Okay, don't do that temperature fluctuation. So again, can you do it? Yeah. Can you take a chance? Yeah. Have I done it? Yeah. But I can tell you, I've screwed up enough stuff because it doesn't work. You have to really know what you're doing to be able to paint in those situations. Okay, so enough about that. So what I want to show you is the Victory paint. Actually, one thing I got here for you. If you're wondering, a lot of these cans, okay, they don't tell you anything. This whole thing on the back is half in a different language and half on how it's going to kill you and the safety factors, okay? There's nothing on this can that tells you how to do anything. Most of these companies expect you to know how to paint, okay? If you're buying this stuff, you probably know what you're doing, okay? You still need some tips. You still need some help. All the companies have something called either a tech sheet, a P sheet, whatever. You can go online. The stores should have them for you, or they can print them for you. It's a good thing to have if you're new to this and you don't really know what you're doing. Some of the companies, and I'll just show you these kind of up close. This is a PPG, and if you look, this would be the label on the can. Okay, so it has here the mixing ratios, and it has a little thing on time and temperature and all that type of stuff. Okay, so some of the cans do have that. This is one for a gallon can. Okay, it has the same things right here. That's about the most directions they give you. Okay, for a painter, that's all we need to know. We need to know how do you mix it. Basically, that's it. How do you mix it and what reducer, what thinner. It gives you the part numbers of what you should use. That's basically all we need to know. If you want to get into something a little bit more involved, this is what I was saying. This is a PPG. This is a P sheet, okay? It gives you the part number of what you're working with. This happens to be the clear, okay? It's very informative. It has all kind of stuff on here like how it dries and durability. But inside, it has all the stuff, okay? I can read this here. It has, here's your standard mix, 4 to 1 to 1. So 4 parts clear, 1 part reducer, and 1 part, I'm not even sure what that one is, flex additive maybe. But you go down through and it'll tell you the additives. It'll tell you apply it. 2 wet coats, okay? Air pressure. You see HVLP, okay, and it's 10 pounds. Conventional, that means the old cup gun that's not HVLP. You can also buy the top loader guns, but they're not HVLP, they're just top loader, okay? So conventional, 45 to 55 pounds. So you can see quite a drastic difference between 10 and 45 pounds. Okay, this fluid tip down here, that's the size of the paint gun. You don't really need to know any of that. That gets really confusing for what you're doing. Okay, drying times up here. Between coats, 5 to 10 minutes, it's 70 degrees. So that you put your first coat on, you wait for the second coat, and then you wait 5 or 10 minutes, okay? So that tells you all that kind of stuff. It says force drying, you know, if you had infrared lights and stuff like that. How to clean the guns, okay? Do you use lacquer thinner, whatever, a little bit of technical data, the packaging stuff. Resistance testing, this is just how durable it is. Okay, so these P sheets are really handy. All the companies have them online. Like I say, you can print it off. So that is something that's really good to have. But guess what? Victory doesn't really have one. Okay, so we have the instructions on the website, some basic stuff. For the most part, you just need to know how to mix it. And you spray it, and you just kind of need to know what you're doing a little bit. So unfortunately, they do give it to you, but they don't give you anything like that, okay? So back to the Victory paint. Now, what you have in Victory, you basically have, most paints are base coat, clear coat, and there are some colors that are tri-coat. Now what tri-coat means, you have a base, then you have a mid coat, then you have a clear, okay? So those are usually your pearls. In the Victory paint, Pearl White is a tri-coat. Antifreeze Green is a tri-coat. Can't think of any off the top of my head here, but those are tri-coats. The other colors are all base coat, clear coat. So what I got to show you was, this is a sunset red, okay? And I'll get in here a little bit closer, but show you. Now, on this label, again, basically how everything's gonna kill you. But what it has, and it's half in French, okay? But what you do on the front, so this is the sunset red, okay? And you will see the part number. Now, none of this stuff matches your bike. You're not gonna find this on your bike anywhere. But if you look, it says activate 8-to-1 with SE 5085. So that's the activator, that's the hardener, okay? That is this stuff. You get a pint of this with it, okay? So what you do is it's 8 parts paint to 1 part activator, okay? And you stir that up. Now, couple things. Don't pour the activator in the can because you're gonna harden the whole can, okay? You don't wanna do that. What they make, and you can get these at Lowe's, I've seen them, they're really cheap, they're mixing cups, measuring mixing cups, okay? Really easy to do. This is just a pint one, and here's a quart one. You can get them clear up into gallons. And I'll try to show you on here. There is on here all kind of different, hopefully you can see this, like 2-to-1-to-1, 4-to-1-to-1, 8-to-1-to-1, okay? Most of that you don't need to know. If your paint mixture is 2-to-1, let's say, or like this, what was Sunset Red here? Sunset Red was 8-to-1. So what I do, I take on this side of the cup, and you can see it's just graduated, okay? So for real simple sake, you would go up 8, you would fill the cup up with the red, Sunset Red to 8, and then you would go to 9, you would just pour the activator into 9. So that's 8-to-1, okay? If you wanted to go farther, you'd go 16 and add 2. If you wanted to go a little less, you go 4 and you add a half, okay? You really can't go much more than cutting stuff in half, because then your ratios get out of whack, okay? So I don't recommend doing that. I know you might have a little bit of waste, but don't do it. It can cause too many other problems. If you don't get the, measuring a half of activator is really hard, and measuring like a quarter is even worse, okay? So you don't want to do that. Just try to stay at the 8-to-1 or the 2-to-1 or whatever the ratios are. Try to stay at that. Okay, so you would just put that in here. You mix the paint in here. Do not put the activator, like I say, into the can and mix it. You will ruin the whole batch. You'll kill it, okay? So mix it in here. If you don't mix enough, come back, pour a little bit more in here, go back to your 8, whatever, mix another batch, and do it that way. One thing I do recommend, if you're gonna paint an overall bike, get yourself a gallon one of these and mix up the paint that way, because as you pour out of the can and you put in here to respray something, the metallic's gonna be different. The metallic's gonna settle in the can, and you're gonna get, like I talked about, one part's gonna have more metallic. Mix up all the paint you wanna use in one time and keep it in a can. Even if if you put hardener in it, it takes hours to dry, okay? So you don't have to worry about that. But the hotter it is outside, the faster it's gonna dry, so keep that in mind. If you're Arizona 90 degrees, that's gonna dry a lot quicker than if you're, Alaska, okay? So mix up all your paint at one time and spray it. Don't keep mixing little batches, because your colors will be off. Mix it at one time and then spray all your parts. Okay, and again, like I say, pint cup has the exact same thing on it. If you're just doing little batches, you can use a pint bigger or a gallon, whatever you want to do. Okay, now on the Pearl White, like I said, this is a tri-coat. Now, like I say, they don't tell you anything. So you get on here, you're going to see activate with the hardener 7-to-1. Okay, White Lightning, that one's called. And this one's called New Pearl White, activate 6-to-1. Okay, now the first thing, and the thing we get all the time, is which one's the base coat, which one's the mid coat. Okay, on this type of stuff, it does not tell you, but I can tell you the White Lightning, and in most cases, okay, the straight color is the base color. Okay, that's your base. So again, you take this, measure it in that cup, add the activator, get your mixture, spray it on. That's your base, okay? The pearl colors, the metallic type colors, those are the mid coats. Those go on second. So you would paint your part. In that case, it's just like a plain white, plain Jane white. You put that on first, then you take this. It's like a whitish, silverish color, like a pearl. Mix that up and you spray that over top, okay? That's what gives you the flip-floppy pearl. The white reflects it back, so you see the sparkly in it, okay? That's what that is. Then you would come over top of this with the clear tri-coat, okay? 3 steps. Again, a lot harder to spray, more steps, takes a lot longer because you have all those coats. You have to wait for them to dry, spray another one, wait for it to dry, spray another one. Okay, so a lot more steps involved. The Victory paint, you can go to the parts store and get the clears, like I said, the high volume or high solids clear, any of that. You can do that, it'll be fine. I've done it both ways. I don't really see much difference. We offer the Victory Clear, okay, on the website. I would say I started using this a little bit more. What it did was it reduced the cost, okay? Now, what I mean by that, if you use the Victory Clear, the activator that you have is enough to do this too, because it's 8 parts paint to 1 part activator, so you got a lot of activator left over. So when you buy this clear, you don't have to buy activator, so it saves you a little bit. If you don't, you buy the clear, you know, the off aftermarket brand, and then you got to buy the hardener, okay? I don't think that I've ever seen clear in pints. Most of this paint is quarts or bigger. If you go aftermarket paint, some of the companies will sell you a pint, you know, if you can do that. Like I say, if you're changing color, you can get a pint. A pint's not going to be enough to change color on a bike, but you can do that. So I recommend just getting the factory clear. It gives you the right shine. You have the activator, and you're already using the paint, so it's just very easy to do. One thing I'll say on the suede, the denim, like the Nuclear Sunset, the suede pearl white, titanium, suede titanium colors. I have tried the aftermarket flat clear, and you can get every kind out there. I see guys on Facebook saying they use this brand, that brand. Let me tell you, that stuff's hard to do. Okay, that stuff's very hard to do. I have never seen an aftermarket flat clear match like the Victory Flat Clear, okay? You can buy flattening agent, you can dump it in and dull it down a little bit, you can do all kind of things. If you got the time for that and you want to paint it 3 or 4 times, have at it. I say buy the factory flat clear that we sell, and I'm not giving you a sales pitch, you can get it anywhere, you can get it at the dealer. Most of them don't have a clue on any of that stuff though, I can tell you. Use the flat clear if you're painting like a fender. You put a 21-inch wheel on your bike or something, you need to paint the fender, use the factory flat clear, you won't have any problems. Now, with that said, it is extremely hard to paint. The more coats you put on, the shinier it gets. So that is an absolute 1 or 2 coats and done. The downside of that stuff is, if you get some dust in it, you're pretty well stuck. You cannot sand and buff out the flat paints. Obviously, they would be shiny then. It just doesn't work. So you have to have a pretty good environment where there's not a lot of dust, okay? Where with the other clear, you can always sand and buff them. And that's why I say if you screw it up and you get a little dust, you sand and buff it out. We already have a video on how to sand and buff. It's not that hard. Take your time, not that hard. That's why I say the base coat, clear coat, urethane paints came around, they've probably been around at least 20 years now, I bet you. At least 30 years probably, 25 years. Anyhow, they're very user-friendly if you follow the steps, okay? When we get into the next video, I'll show you some of that stuff, but very user-friendly. Don't be scared to try it yourself. Again, you can get the Harbor Freight Gun and use it in any of these paints, and you'll be fine. So that's basically covers the paint part. That's probably the biggest part of this video, is understanding that. Now, the question that people say, how much paint do I need, okay? You cannot buy the Victory paint in anything other than a quart. I mean, you can get spray cans, but that's even hard to come by now. And if you want to paint your trunk or your gas tank with a spray can, have at it, but that ain't me. So when you're wondering how much paint you need, figure out the ratio, okay? If it's 2 to 1, you're going to get 1.5 quarts of sprayable material. So you're going to have, let's say this whole quart is 2, you're going to add one of these. Okay, so you're going to get this much sprayable material. So don't just think you're getting a quart of paint and that's all it is. You got to add in the other to what you're going to get. Okay, so it's not huge, but it is extra. A quart of paint is more than enough to paint a bike. If you got saddlebags, fenders, you know, you're painting your whole thing, interfering, dash, the whole deal, a quart of paint is more than enough. If you can't paint that bike, now, if you're not using an HVLP gun, if you didn't do the primers the right color, if you didn't do all that, you probably are going to screw something up and need more paint. Okay, so again, it's the prep. It's getting all that stuff right is where you're going to make success. You don't have to know how to paint as long as you do the prep and you follow some of these steps. You will be fine, okay? But again, that's the trick. If you're not using an HVLP gun, most of your paint is going into the air, okay? That's the EPA thing. That's why they give you the high volume, low pressure, because it puts a lot of paint on the part without blowing it all over in the air, okay? So that means less paint, less material, it goes farther, all that type stuff. So hopefully I've covered most of that on paint. I'm sure I probably missed something, but for most of you guys that don't have a clue what you're doing here, that's more than enough to get you started. So we'll come back with the next step.